That Movie Nut here with a review for The Adventures of Tintin, the 2011 adventure film starring Jamie Bell, Andy Serkis, Daniel Craig, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost. Based on the iconic comic books The Adventures of Tintin by Belgian artist Hergé, the story follows Tintin, a young reporter who comes across a model of the ship known as the Unicorn at a flea market. Two gentlemen approach him trying to buy the ship off him, one being a fat American, the other being a local collector called Ivanovich Sakharine. When he refuses to sell the ship to the two and takes it back home, he decides to investigate further on the Unicorn, having heard tales of the myth surrounding the ship. At the library, he discovers that the ship was supposedly carrying a mysterious cargo besides tobacco and rum, but it was sunk due to pirates. Upon returning home, he finds his flat ransacked. However, he finds a steel tube that was inside one of the ship masts, and there leads him to his first clue to the location of the Unicorn. From there, Tintin continues his investigations, crossing paths with Sakharine, and ultimately meeting the alcoholic Captain Haddock, who is a descendant of the Unicorn's captain. Together, the two decide to unravel the mystery and get to the treasure before Sakharine. The performances here are excellent. Jamie Bell, who you might know as Billy Elliot, does a great job as Tintin, and he has the perfect voice for the boy reporter. In fact, he sounds a lot like the Tintin from the 90s animated series, which helped me ease into the film a lot quicker. Andy Serkis is fabulous as Captain Haddock. Initially, I had my reservations about him because I didn't think he had the deep voice or gruff manner associated with the drunk captain, but he pulls it off flawlessly here. This is the Haddock straight from the comics. Daniel Craig pulls in a surprising performance as Ivanovich Sakharine and his ancestor Red Rackham. I never knew Daniel Craig had such vocal range. In fact, he's almost unrecognizable, which is a good thing since I can't really imagine the voice of Bond as the voice of a crazed ship collector / supervillain. And Simon Pegg and Nick Frost do well as Thompson and Thompson, the bumbling detectives. And while they're not exactly as witty or funny as they are in the other movies, they're still an enjoyable presence to watch. And of course, throughout the film, sprinkled in as various characters, you have actors like Carrie Elways and Mackenzie Crook playing thugs, smugglers, and even Tony Curran as Lieutenant Delacourt, a desert legionnaire. All of them play their roles to perfection, and they all clearly had fun making this film going larger than life, which is perfect for the Adventures of Tintin, and it captures the spirit of the characters from Hergé's books magnificently. Of course, the big thing everyone wants to hear about is the visuals. This film was done with the legendary motion capture technology, though instead of it being through the hand of Robert Zemeckis, it's actually done by Peter Jackson's company Weta Digital, and I have to say it looks great. The textures are beautiful to look at, and everything feels just like a real-life version of Hergé's comic. You know what, I am very much inclined to agree that live action could simply not have done the world of Tintin justice. Everything here has the correct color scheme, the correct size, and the correct sense about it that matches perfectly with any drawing from Hergé's comics. And that's not to say that the visuals are just there to look pretty. There are a number of times where the story has very dramatic moments, such as the plane crashing in the desert, or the flashback to the battle between Haddock and Sakharine's ancestors over the Unicorn, which includes one of the best pirate ship battles that has ever been put on screen. Not to mention a phenomenal chase scene between Sakharine and Tintin and Haddock that fully take advantage of the technology and do camera angles, camera pans, camera tilts, and other camera tricks that simply could not have been possible, at least not without ridiculous expenses, in live action, and it shows that Steven really is determined to make the most of what he can with this new technology. The soundtrack is provided by John Williams, and for the most part it is his usual good stuff. While it's not as memorable as his Indiana Jones music, which is obviously something that many people would instantly think would suit this kind of film, I have only one gripe: the opening theme. Now, far be it from me to talk crap about John Williams. I love the guy, I think he's a phenomenal composer, but the opening theme for me at least sets the wrong tone. You have to remember, this is a big epic adventure film, but the opening theme sounds like something from a low-budget mystery thriller. Like, in fact, when I listened to that as the very impressive title sequence using beautiful graphics that look like they came right out of Hergé's comic, I couldn't help but constantly think back to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. There's just something about that opening theme that just seems so reminiscent of that film, and it doesn't quite fit for a high, action-packed adventure film. But that's a minor complaint at best, and the rest of the soundtrack complements the film perfectly. In fact, a number of tunes that you've heard in the trailer were actually pieces of music from this film, and they were used during the chase and other action sequences, and they do great, and they just elevate the mood, and you're just on the edge of your seat, and I really have to hand it to Williams. Though this is not one of his best scores, it still gets you in the good mood. And now we talk about the big thing, the script, and ipso ergo, the faithfulness to the source material. I have been a Tintin fan for a very, very long time. I've read many of the comics and watched the animated series many times as a kid. So I had really high hopes and expectations with this. And I'll tell you something, this film is incredibly faithful to the source material. Everyone is as they should be in this film. Everyone behaves the way they do, everyone sounds the way they should. All the characters do the things that you know and love from the comics, whether it's Thompson and Thompson bumbling around, whether it's Tintin solving the mystery, or whether it's Captain Haddock drinking away. It all fits, and it all feels like Steven took this right out of the comic. Now, this story is based on 3 of the Hergé comics, Crab with the Golden Claws and The Secret of the Unicorn two-parter. Now, obviously, The Secret of the Unicorn two-parter takes the dominant stage here, with the story being around Haddock's ancestor and the treasure aboard the Unicorn. And I have to admit, this was handled really well. While I still feel that, in a sense, Crab with the Golden Claws was adapted just to have extra action scenes, because Crab with the Golden Claws in and of itself is actually about drug smuggling and has next to no connection with Secret of the Unicorn. The desert set pieces really add a lot to the film, and in fact it's what makes the ship scene where Haddock remembers what happened between Rackham and his ancestor so special, and it creates some beautiful imagery that just really shows off this world that Tintin lives in. And the dialogue is good. And if Tintin comes off as bland or saying things that are obvious, he was that way in the comics. He was the boy detective going around solving the mysteries, stopping the bad guys with help from his friends, and this film captures that perfectly. Tintin isn't a bland character. He's the audience's window into this world, this extraordinary world of adventure where you have characters going off to space, discovering treasure, discovering the last of the Incas, shooting stars, island castles with gorillas guarding them. You know, all this stuff out there, it just makes the world so alive and so colourful. And Tintin, being a very neutral person, a very calm person, is our gateway into this world. Because think about it, if he himself were as eccentric and big as the world around him, it really wouldn't be that interesting. We need a straight man to play off against all the wackiness in this world, and it works great. And Tintin and Haddock, ipso ergo, Jamie Bell and Andy Serkis work great off each other, and they contrast each other nicely, with Jamie being nice and subdued, while Haddock is loud and bombastic. And while Thompson and Thompson are more slapstick than witty, the little kids undoubtedly will love them. At least it's not a wasted scene that's just there to pad out the movie. Thompson and Thompson's slapstick actually plays a part in the story and how it progresses, which is nice that they tied all the scenes together instead of just throwing in something just to make the kids laugh. And of course, Snowy, who steals every scene he's in. They captured the character of Snowy, Tintin's dog, perfectly from the comics. And he very much has a great personality of his own, and I know the kids will love him. And the pacing works great. This film moves from place to place really quickly. It doesn't waste time on long exposition scenes or bloated, pompous dialogue. Instead, it just moves from place to place to place at a great pace, but it never leaves behind anything. It doesn't leave you in the dark. It tells you what you need to know and then moves on to the next action scene. And it benefits the film enormously, and it really does add to that whole big adventure feel that I'm sure Hergé would be proud of. And throughout there's various references to Tintin comics, notably towards the beginning of the film where we see Hergé himself drawing a picture of Tintin, and it looks just like the Tintin from the comics. A scene where we're in Tintin's flat and we see newspaper clippings of him solving cases which are also part of other Tintin comics such as Cigars of the Pharaoh and Tintin in America. And even little touches like the car that Saccharine drives when they're in Morocco is in fact the red Jeep from Land of the Black Gold. This is how you do fan service properly, by making it either a part of the story or part of the background, not just throwing it in like in the X-Men films. And it just adds to that level of respect and detail. And so I must give The Adventures of Tintin the only thing it really deserves: a gold star. While the opening theme doesn't quite set the correct mood, that's just a minor nitpick against everything that's great here. Top-notch acting, phenomenal visuals, great action set pieces that fully take advantage of the technology, and supreme faithfulness to the comics make this a great adventure film for all ages. Even if you're not a Tintin fan, this is a great way to get started.